Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. I'm Chief Sophia of the Americana Band of Indians, and I just wanted to do a quick update on the feast. So far, it's going very, very well. Um, we have encountered quite a few new deities, most of them from the Hindu pantheon, a few, of course, new saints. But this is really good because when we encounter these deities and these entities and they're new, some of them are extremely new to me. Like, I've never heard of these before. I didn't even know there was one for that. Something I'm working on is connecting these deities to the Bible, because that's what we do here. The Bible is a bibliography. It is an index, and the more I research, the more I find that to be true. There's some things in the Bible don't seem to have a meaning or a purpose, but once you realize the prophecy that Jesus, especially in the New Testament, is trying to fulfill, then it makes sense. So one thing I can say is that all the stories that remain in the New Testament is Jesus fulfilling certain prophecies from other backgrounds. So on Sunday was the Sunday for the Samaritan woman, who is known in the Orthodox Church as Saint Photini, and the priest pointed out a few things that I want to share. One thing that he pointed out was that this is the longest interaction Jesus has with anybody, anyone in the whole New Testament. This story is recounted in detail and is literally the longest talk that he has with anybody. Some other things he points out is, before we talked about the Samaritan woman. Now remember, Samaritans were also from the 12 tribes. They just weren't considered from the tribe of Judah. They were from other sections of the tribe. And so when Jesus walks up to the well, he is not necessarily thirsty. He is looking for someone, right? He's looking for someone to interact with him in a certain way, so that he can make sure that this story gets played out. And so basically, this woman, Saint Photini, she keep in mind that in this story, we're talking about a small town. Let's say it's a town of like 400, 500 people. And the way that in the culture at the time it would have worked, and which makes sense if you're from the country, you know what I'm talking about. You would not be going to the well in the middle of the day to get water, because then the water warms up. It's the same reason why you don't go fishing in the middle of the day. The fish are at the top of the river in the morning when it's cold. So you would go fishing, it's the same thing. You wouldn't go get water in the middle of the day. You would go get water first thing in the morning when the water is still cold, because by the middle of the day the water is heated up. So the reason why Saint Photini was there in the middle of the day is because she was trying to avoid all the talking, all the snickers and the sneers and the looks and all that stuff that she gets for what? Having 5 husbands. That means, from based on all of the research that we've done over here, that means that her culture was a culture where virginity was for sale. The women were for sale, right? And so she has 5 husbands. So basically that means that she was not worth anything, zero. And because it's a small town, it's not like, oh, it's a big town, it's people who don't know you. No, everybody knows your story because y'all are all related. So if you've had 5 husbands, that's 5 cousins, basically, essentially. And so when Jesus tells her, if you draw me some water, if you ask me, you could get the living water. And he was like, well, why would you ask me that? Because my husband. And she said, well, who's your husband? She said, well, I don't have a husband. And he said, yeah, you about right, because you had 5 husbands. Whoa, call her out to her face. And so something that the priest also pointed out is that Saint Photini was believed because she said when she got back to her folks, you know, he told me about myself. He read me the riot. Basically, he told me all of my dirt. You know what I mean? And they believed her. So because everybody believed her, knowing that she was not the type of woman you would talk to, basically because of her history. And so if she's coming here saying, hey, I interacted with this guy and he told me everything about me, y'all might want to go listen to what he has to say, because he's offering the living water. They all knew the prophecies about Jesus, right? That's another thing. Like, this is how you know they were from the 12 tribes, just not from the tribe of Judah, because everybody in the 12 tribes knows the prophecies. So he was very specifically trying to trigger the remembrance of the prophecies when he engaged with her. And so the whole town goes to hear him speak, and basically they convert and follow him. Because they see, oh, he is the Christ. She had in her mind before, she said, is this the Christ? Is this him? Because they said he was going to come like this. They said he was going to come like that. And look at this, he meets the criteria. And her vouching that he met the criteria convinced her folks to come and see if he met the criteria. So Saint Photini is known as a saint of evangelism. And that's one thing I talk about a lot. And we haven't done a lot of evangelism over here because I didn't really know how to approach it the right way. But now that I understand that this story is about evangelizing, it makes more sense in how you're supposed to do it. So it's a real shame that I don't call them the Roman Christians anymore. I call them the Greek Christians. It's a real shame that the Greek Christians don't tell her story, because the rest of her story is known. It's passed down. We have a whole, again, the Sunday just passed was her Sunday. So it's a well-known story, who she is, her children, her martyrdom, everything that happened to her is very, very well known. And it's a real shame that the Greek church will not, the Greek Christians will not actually discuss this. It's a real shame. They leave her story kind of like, oh, she's just some random woman and we don't know what happened to her after that. It's just not true. It's literally not true. It's simply not true. We have a full accounting over on the Orthodox side. And so I want to juxtapose that. Now, this is what on Sunday, I want to juxtapose that with something I just mentioned, the Greek Christians. The Greeks did also come to see Jesus. Now, think about this. The Greeks were some of the biggest philosophers in the world. Everyone knew them. They were literally world renowned. So Jesus being a philosopher, they wanted to, this is what normally happens. When you hear about a new philosopher, as a philosopher, you kind of go and talk to them and kind of see where they're at and get their theory. And then you normally converse back and forth, because not specifically that you're trying to convince them that their philosophy is wrong, but you want to challenge it, see where the holes are so that they can more fully develop it. It's kind of like sparring, right? And so you have these Greek philosophers that come. Now, Jesus saw them pulling up. Like, if you look in the story, I think it's John 20:26. And we'll probably do a longer video on this, but I just want to put this in as a placeholder. So you have the Greeks pull up and Jesus sees them. He ignores them. So then they say to Paul or somebody, they say to somebody, hey, we want to talk to Jesus. And he's like, oh, all right, let me see if he got some time to talk to y'all. So then one of the disciples goes and talks to another disciple and says, hey, they want to talk to Jesus. Now, mind you, Jesus is right here. He's not over there somewhere. He's right here. And the other disciple's like, oh, okay, well, let me ask him. Like, nobody wants to ask him if he wants to talk to these people. I'll explain that in a minute. And so they ask him, hey, these Greeks are here to talk to you. You want to talk to them? And Jesus goes off. He's like, I don't have time to argue with these people about philosophies and theories, and I'm out here doing the work, and they need to just have a seat and figure out what they want to do. I've come here to do my job, not to philosophize with them. And he literally just ignores them, like they're not right, like they're not standing right there and can't hear him. Now, what does this story relate to? This is what I'm talking about, fulfilling all the prophecies. This relates to a story in Greek mythology. All of the problems within because the church is called the Roman Catholic Church, but it's not Roman Catholic. It's really Greek Christian Church, because they follow all of the rules, all of the deities that are listed within the Greek mythology, not the Roman mythology. And so this is where you have to understand what's going on between the different pantheons, and that's what I've been looking to. So in the Greek pantheon, you have a story that is only in the Greek pantheon. It's not in the Indian pantheon, and it's not in the Roman pantheon. It's only in the Greek pantheon. And this story is a story of the Troy War. And this is what happens. And this is another version of the story of David. And you'll understand in a minute. What you have happen is this guy, his name is Paris of Troy, right? Paris, the city, is named after him. So a lot of these places are not Roman in nature. They're Greek in nature. And we'll tie that into some other stuff eventually, but just keep that in mind. These are Greek places, not Roman places. We have to be real clear about what's Roman and what's Greek. Roman goes by Venus, Mars, Jupiter. They use the traditional names for the planets and for things. Greek, they made up different names. They got different stories. They got different stuff. So this is about the Troy War. Let's talk about the story of the Troy War and how it relates to Jesus ignoring the Greeks. And also, they tried to say Paul was a Greek, and he was like, I'm not a Greek, I'm a Roman citizen. Look, let me show you. I'm going to prove to you I'm a Roman citizen. That got him out of trouble more than once. Why? Because the Greeks were the ones with the problem. Nobody liked them. Just like another group of people that nobody likes. Interesting. So, and some other demonic organizations that wholly identify themselves with Greek. So that's neither here nor there right now, but you'll get the point. So the Troy War was started because before anything else started, there's a guy. His name is Paris of Troy. He was the son. His story is kind of long. I'm not going to go into all of this, but let's just say he had a contest where he judged a bunch of animals, okay? And Ares, who was Mars, transformed into a bull to enter this contest. And he was the most beautiful one. And so Paris judges him as the most beautiful and gives him the crown, okay? So the Greek gods have this background with this guy, this human, Paris of Troy, who basically was a good judge of character, okay? So they know he's a good judge of character. So now let's get to this wedding party. So, and I'm going to talk about this too. There's a wedding party. Now, if you remember with the story of Jesus, Jesus was at a wedding party too. And if you wonder why he literally he did that miracle for the wine, it was to prevent what happened at this Greek wedding party from happening. So what happens at this Greek wedding party is that they don't run out of wine or anything like that, but there's someone who's not invited, and that's Eris. And so what Eris does is she writes on a golden, she's the bride's sister or something like that. They forget to invite her. She writes on a golden apple for the fairest, right? And she just throws the golden apple up in the middle of the room. She goes to the party, of course, throws the golden apple up in the middle of the room, and three goddesses see it: Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena. Okay, and they all say, well, no, I'm the most beautiful. No, I'm the most beautiful. You know, they start arguing over who's the most beautiful. So they ask Zeus to decide which one of his daughters is the most beautiful, and he's like, I'm not getting involved in that battle. So Hermes decides, okay, let's go ask, remember that guy, you know, who was a good judge of character, Paris? Let's go and ask him. So these goddesses, these are goddesses. They strip naked and bathe, and then they walk with Hermes in front of this human, right? And they say, which one is the fairest? And he's looking at these three naked women, and he's like, I can't decide which one is the fairest. Y'all are both beautiful. All three of y'all are beautiful, right? So then they start offering him stuff. One offers him India and Europe. One offers him wisdom. Athena offers him wisdom. Hera offers him India and Europe. Aphrodite offers him Helen of Troy. And he's like, oh, he chooses love, of course. So because Helen, backstory on her, she is the most beautiful woman in Troy. Everyone loves her. And it was a deal struck that whenever she got married, like whoever she chose to be in a relationship with, everybody else would fight whoever tried to come and take her. And this is kind of like the whole thing with Sarah, where what did Abraham do? He kept saying, oh, that's my sister. Oh, that's my sister. So to prevent something like that from happening with Helen, because she was so beautiful, if somebody tried to take her, everybody in Troy would be obligated to fight. So, no, everybody in the city, it wasn't, Helen wasn't from Troy. It was another city. Anyway, it was a Greek city. So, okay, boom. Paris chooses Helen. And Aphrodite's like, and so Aphrodite is selected as the fairest because that's who he chose, right? So then Paris is like, okay, well, let's go get her. So they go over to where she's been. Now, mind you, this is like a queen, she's in a royal palace. She goes over to where Paris goes over to where Helen is being held. And Aphrodite basically convinces her to lay with him, which is, no, you can't do this, because no one ever mentioned she was already married. This is why I said this story reminds me of David. She was already married. She was already taken off the market. Paris comes in and he's now mind you, he was already married too. He was already married. So, and his first wife was a nymph. This story is so convoluted. So anyway, he leaves her, just totally forgets about her. Like, it goes to get Helen. Helen leaves with him, doing what Aphrodite is also Venus in the Roman pantheon, goes with him. And then her husband, Helen's husband, now starts this whole battle, the War of Troy, and they go and fight them, trying to get them back. Now, I'm just still working on the sides, who is on which side. So basically, you've got Paris out here. He's fighting for this woman. Now, mind you, he don't know this woman. He just met this woman, right? He just knows that she's beautiful. And he's fighting for her. So he's the one that shoots the arrow in Achilles' heel. He's the one that, he takes out a bunch of people, and then finally somebody takes him out. So on his deathbed, he realized he's dying. He goes back to his first wife. Her name is Nonion or something like that. And, or Onion. Yeah, something like that. He goes back to his first wife because she's a healer and she uses herbs to heal, right? He goes back to his first wife and he's like, oh, can you heal me? And she's like, I told you, first of all, because she was given a prophecy that said your husband's going to leave and he's going to go to another woman and blah, blah, blah. And she tries to warn him, hey, don't go and be messing around with these guys because you're going to die. You're going to leave me. You're going to die. And he didn't take her seriously. So he comes back to her. He begs her to heal him. She's like, nigga, if you don't get the fuck out of this house, I don't even know you. And so he dies on the side of the mountain on the way back to wherever he was going. And again, that's why I say this reminds me of the story of David. Like, it just one of the ways the story could have ended if it didn't end the way that it did. And so I'm like reading this and I'm like, this is crazy. This is so much drama. So, and like I said, in the Indian pantheons, they have drama. In the Roman pantheons, they have drama. But this is like a soap opera. This is not the same kind of drama. And so, again, these people are copycats. And so, all of the Greek pantheon is the central event in the Greek pantheon is the Trojan War, the Battle of Troy. That is and it's over, a competition going, someone not getting invited to the party, them spoiling the party with someone getting not invited to a wedding, them spoiling the wedding with a competition, the girl's not being unreasonable and saying they're going to give them stuff that, yes, they have control over, but no, they shouldn't be giving away Europe and India to somebody. That's kind of crazy. And of course, in the past, what did Solomon choose? Solomon chose wisdom. You know, he didn't choose the woman. He didn't choose the land. He chose the wisdom. So then you have that as a factor. You have you get this human involved. Now, mind you, these are all gods having this party. You get this human involved, and he's got human emotions, and so you play on his human emotions, and then like when the whole thing is going down, you just leave him to die. Like death, destruction, and chaos. Now, there's one group of people that have many different skin colors and many different characteristics, but they all serve the same pantheon of gods, which is these Greek gods. Who else is related to these Greek gods? A lot of people who do Santeria and Ifa and all that, they all tie directly into the Greek gods. Yes, they tie into the Roman gods. Yes, they tie into the Egyptian deities. Yes, they tie into other ones, but they also tie into these Greek pantheons. And so you can tell who is a part of this particular group by what gods they serve. If they serve these Greek gods, then that's their pantheon of gods. You can't ignore that. And it's the same thing for many of these gods in the Old Testament. They are the same Greek gods. So when a Jew says the Father, they mean Zeus. When they say Yahweh, they mean Zeus. They're talking about the Greek pantheon of gods. Same thing with these Greek Christian churches, including the Greek Catholic Church. They are doing everything that they do for the Greek pantheon. And so that changes a lot of the dynamic, because even though they call themselves Roman, they're not engaged with the Roman pantheon of gods. The Roman pantheon gods is related to the astrology and the astronomy. The Greek pantheon of gods is the imitators. Same thing, like I said, with the Jews. Same thing, like I said, with not Islam, because Islam is related to Jesus, which is the one, he came to fulfill the prophecies. But like I said, the whole premise of making this video, he fulfilled all the prophecies. The reason why the Samaritan woman brought the whole place to see Jesus is because she knew he was fulfilling not only their cultural prophecy, but the prophecy of other cultures with the way that he interacted with her. Because the Jesus-like God in the Indian pantheon is a god named Yama, and Yama is the first human to have died. And so Yama is very much related to Abel. And so we know that Jesus came from that bloodline. We have it very specifically that he came from the bloodline of Seth, more specifically, but he came from that original human bloodline. And so she could see that he was engaging in the same wisdom as David, same wisdom as Solomon, in the way that he addressed her. He didn't like shame her. He just said, oh yeah, you told the truth, because really you had 5 husbands. He didn't shame her. That wasn't a shame. That was true. It was the truth. That's what had happened to her based on various different sets of laws, not the Samaritan law. I mean, Samaritan is a catch-all word. Really bothers me, but it was based on their rules and their regulations in their communities, and Jesus knew that, and so he addressed all of that when he said, "Oh yeah, you're right, because you actually had 5 husbands." That's it. Because there's only certain groups that consider, this goes back to we were talking about PBR a long time ago, and the sexual magic and the research into whether a woman is for sale or not for sale. In communities where women are not for sale, if you have sex before marriage, it's not breaking the marriage covenant. You still only had one husband. In communities where the women are for sale, Chastity is for sale. If you have sex with someone before marriage, you're considered a damaged vessel and your dowry has been diminished. But in the other societies where the women aren't for sale, your dowry is not diminished because you had sex. Once you're betrothed, that's when it's serious. And it's not serious with any of these people or any of this stuff until you're betrothed. That's how it is in societies where women are not for sale. And so you see Jesus addressing all of this stuff in his statement where he says, you're right that you don't have a husband because you've had 5 husbands. Talking about her community, the values of her community, the values of the community at large, the rules and regulations within the Jewish community, and also how it would work if she was not a part of that quote unquote Jewish community anymore. Because she was telling the truth. She did not view her body as for sale. And therefore she wasn't married. But because Jesus knew her background, her bloodlines, and that's how they did view as women as for sale, of course, she would recognize that too. So that's a lot of information that if you don't have all this other research, you would just look at the story. And I've read the story 1,000 times. None of this stuck out to me until, like I said, the priest mentioned, hey, she went to she had to go there at noon by herself so that she didn't get talked about by the other people in her family. I never thought about that. But as soon as he said it, I instantly recognized it. Oh my gosh, that's what you would do. Everybody's gathering here to do something. You ain't going to. A lot of people with y'all families right now, you don't want to have to explain to them, why you were suffering, why this bad thing happened, why that bad thing happened. So instead of doing that, what you do, you just don't go to the family dinners. You don't go to the family church. You don't talk to the people in your family. You know where they live and you go somewhere else. This is the kind of stuff that people do. And it's really, horrible that this is how these stories play out. But Jesus even addressed that within his discussion with the Samaritan woman, which again, the longest discussion in the Bible he has with anybody, the longest story ever. And he had it with this woman who was a harlot in the way that they describe it in the Bible. But he knew she wasn't a harlot because guess what? Women are not for sale. Chastity is not for sale. So it's just not for sale. When you find somebody you love, you're with them, and when their usefulness runs out, then you remove yourself from them. That's how it works. There's no other way to get around it. And so no matter what they say, that's exactly how it works. So I just wanted to relay that because all of these stories have, so mind you, now I've tied in Lord Yama from the Indian, I tied in Jesus, I tied in David. You could clearly see all of them in this story once you have all these layers peeled back. Paris of Troy, he's tied into this because the reason why Jesus ignored the Greeks and did not ignore the woman is because of this whole battle that went on within the Greeks. And so the Greeks are not to be trusted. And now I have a clear view of what that means. And so just to round this out, around December the 4th, there was an apparition over a Greek island, which you can look it up, like December 4th apparition in Greece, and it'll show you, it looks like an angel leaving the land. And so basically that's what it looks like happening. The angel that was protecting that land's left, and it ties in directly with this Mars retrograde cycle, because remember, Aries is the one who knew, because he had Aries as in Mars, knew that Paris of Troy was a good judge of character because he was the one who initially tested him. So he knew he was a good judge of character. And what did Hermes do? Hermes used that for some wickedness, and so at the time of December the 4th, Jupiter and Mercury were in retrograde. Mars was still direct, and a few days later Mars goes retrograde in Leo, and basically everyone is still talking. We just got out of the shadow of the Leo retrograde, of the Mars retrograde. The Mars retrograde has literally been going on for 6 months, because when it started in the point that it was in which I think was in actually, I think it's been going on since September, because Mars was in Cancer, and it once it hit the point that the furthest point it was going to retrograde to in Cancer, that's when this Mars retrograde cycle started, because it moved forward all the way up to 6 degrees of Leo, and it went all the way back into Cancer wherever it went, and then had to come all the way out of Leo. And literally, I would say last week it just came out of the shadow. I think it was May the 4th. It just came out of the shadow. So almost 5 months from when this apparition comes over. Oh, 5 months from when this apparition comes over Greece, where they have lost their blessing. That's when it starts to be revealed that it really wasn't the Romans that's the problem, it's the Greeks. Because I always called them the Roman Christians, and like, I have to retract that. It's not the Roman Christians, it's the Greek Christians that worship these Greek gods, and all the gods are nothing but sowers of discord and discontent. And so people who worship that pantheon of God, they want nothing but discord and discontent. That is the curse of Canaan. That is the curse of Ham, is to worship these gods of discord and discontent. And their land is Antarctica, anti-Terra. Like, it's not, it's anti-Terra. Terra is the earth. Anti-Terra as the goddess. They're anti-Terra. That is that's what Antarctica is. And so that's where their home is. And so they need to go back there. All these people who worship these Greek gods need to go back to Antarctica. That's their home. That includes the Jews. That includes a lot of these Greek Christians in the Catholic Church. That includes a lot of these Greek Christians here. That includes a lot of these Greek organizations. Their home is in Antarctica, and that's where they need to return to. And so I pray that the Creator finds it in His great wisdom to send them back home, because we've had enough of them. They're destroying our culture. We, the sons of Ham, need to be together in Canaan. So that means that Canaan, the place, is Antarctica, and basically they're all Canaanites. And that makes sense, because that's where this whole Inky and Enlil and all this stuff comes from. They're talking about when they ran the world from Canaan, which is Antarctica. And they're thinking they're going to go back to their glory days. But I don't think so. I think they're going to go back with their tail between their legs, because the Creator is going to send them there. So no matter how beautiful they say Antarctica is and how amazing it is and all of that, unless you worship those Greek gods, unless you're a son of Ham, you don't supposed to be there. So what did the sons of Ham do? They went in and infiltrated every single group of people in this country. So there's real Jews, and then there's Ham Jews or Canaan Jews. There's real Black Americans, and then there's Canaanite Black Americans. There's real Indians, and there's Canaanite worshipers of Indians. Same thing with Europeans. Same thing with Africans. There's real Africans who are from Kebelon, Africa, who are grouped in with the Eurasian pantheon. They worship different gods than these, even if they call them the same name, they worship different gods than these Canaanite Africans. So we have to be real clear on who we're talking about. And it's basically, you'll know the tree by its fruit. If people are always caught up in chaos and discord, and they don't have any kids, and they're so miserable, and all they do is make other people miserable, I talked about it. Spiritual grifting is when someone tries to drag you to hell with you. The spiritual grifters are actually from this Canaanite bloodline. They worship these Roman gods. I mean, these Greek gods. I'm sorry. The Roman gods are fine. The Indian gods are fine. The Egyptian gods are even fine. It's these Greek gods that are the problem. They are the one causing all the strife and the discord and the chaos. All the other problems can be solved by normal means. Jesus literally had to come and die on the cross to solve the problems from the Greek pantheon. That is insane. That's insane. And so we have to really pay attention to this stuff. Get ready, get right, get all of that. So I say this feast is a complete success. Finding out who the real enemy is, getting really close on how to identify them. So the god Yama, I shared a mantra for him on my community board. You could take a look at, and I think it would be really helpful if you're trying to get your sins forgiven, or for some reason you're fasting right now instead of feasting. That's a good thing to help you. Get your sins forgiven. Listen to that mantra. Get your sins forgiven. Boom. It's that simple. You don't need 40 days. You needed 4 days. It's over. Come join the feast with us. Again, I'm inviting everyone. Come sit at the table. The table is set. Feast sumptuously. Please feast with us. Let's leave the fasting for the fasting. Let the dead bury the dead. Okay, we're alive. We're living. Our Savior lives. Christ is risen. And let's enjoy that while we have him here before our sister comes in. She don't really be playing them type of games, so I look, don't say I didn't warn you. So peace and blessings, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.